Hey, everybody, it's Tuesday night, Taco Tuesday on Tony Bag of Donuts video channel. That's right, it's me, Anthony Sica. I'm here again with another video. Sometimes I talk about comic books, sometimes I talk about movies, sometimes I talk about how much I hate comic books. I always talk about how much I love comic books, but tonight I'm going to talk about a movie that I saw in the theaters in 1993. I was in St. Augustine, Florida, and I went and saw this movie called Hard Target. Three reasons why I went and saw the movie. The first reason, John Woo, the director of Hard Boiled and the Killer, all this crazy great Hong Kong new wave films. Oh my God. What a film director from Hong Kong making his Western American Hollywood debut. John Woo went on to direct Straight Arrow. He directed Face Off and Mission Impossible 2. But he started with Hard Target, starring none other than Van Damme, Lance Henriksen, Yancey Butler, Wilford Brimley, or whatever the fuck his name is, the old guy from the Quaker Oats commercial. Oh my God, what a great fucking movie. Anyway, I'm here with some special guests, some real masters of karate, kung fu, jujitsu, mixed martial arts, a whole bunch of other fucking things that I don't know anything about, but they're all going to talk about what they think about the movie Hard Target. They're going to talk about maybe the martial arts. Maybe they're going to talk about that fantastic mullet. Who knows? But I am going to review it. We are all reviewing it. So, copyright laws be damned. We are doing a review of an artistic piece of work directed by John Woo. I'm going to see if I can buck the copyright gods and show you a little clip, and then we'll be back with our panel in one moment. Oh, look at that. And then we have an ad. That's wonderful. Click, conceal. Oh, look at that. We got to love the way the internet works. Video will play after ad. Look at that. They're getting free advertising. Fucking Maybelline. And that's not even the clip I wanted. You bastard, you. You bastard, you. Oh, you gotta love the internet. I'm turning the sound off, but here is a clip from Hard Target. Ah, the mullet. I'm going to do my own dialogue. Hey, baby, give us your money. Oh, no, don't take my money. Oh, slap. By the way, John Woo was doing slow motion way before Zack Snyder. Yo, leave the woman alone. You and your boyfriend go take a walk. You guys can chime in if you want to do some dialogue.
Where's your wig from last week?
In a box. Hey,
sort of toothpick.
You put that toothpick away. You and your boyfriend take a walk.
Actually, in this movie, there's about 6 different characters you could be with that wig.
You know what he just said to him? He said, hey, what do you think, you're Cobra? Look what I got behind my back here. Nothing.
Check out my quarterback.
Always love those kicks.
Oh.
Full wheel kicks.
Right on that Camaro.
It's the extra spin that gives it the gusto.
Oh, cracked that bottle against the head, but no blood or cut. And then no cut against that parking meter either.
Oh, but this is happening right now.
This guy knows karate. Look at that. He must be from Florida.
Look at my kick. Whoa.
And by the way, that top hair never moves. I want to know who's going to pay for this window.
Yeah. Because no one come out for that.
Nope.
And he clearly owes people a lot of money.
For a minute, I thought that guy had nunchucks, but he was just spinning a tire iron.
That scene made me laugh when I was watching it today.
He's like, you should be more careful, as he picks her purse up. And he says, you should clean that mud around the front of your car.
I just want it noted that that one guy smoked the driver's door with his foot, and then that next scene there was no dent.
Let's
that's not poor film quality. That's a testament to the IROC Z.
let me introduce the panel. First, we have as I move them around. That's not him. I'm so stupid.
How you doing?
One of these days. One of these days. That's still me.
That's still you.
I'm having such technical difficulties today. There you go.
There he is.
Mr. Jeff Rankin. Please introduce yourself, Jeff.
Hello, my name is Jeff Rankin. Been on this show now for what, 5 minutes? So we're talking about this movie today. I've been in martial arts since I was like 3. Started training in Okinawa and under an old man named Yuichi Kuda and Shorin-ryu.
God bless you.
Excuse me. Continue moving on with my father into the United States, and we worked on Aikido, a lot of judo. Then I moved on into wanting to compete all the time. And so I met a wonderful instructor named John Chung out of Northern Virginia, and he took me under his wing and competed in ITF and WTF on the NASCA circuit there for a while, and just did a whole bunch of competitions for a lot of fun. So definitely love the stuff. Been doing it my whole entire life, and now I'm turning 50, and my bones don't work the same, but I still enjoy it.
All right, that's Jeff. So Jeff Rankin, I guess you're qualified a little to give your thoughts on this movie. You've seen the movie, correct?
I have seen the movie a number of times. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know it's probably not your favorite, but did you see it in the movies when it came out?
Actually, no.
All right.
I saw it in rental.
All right. Next, we have Daryl. Daryl, tell us why you're qualified to be on this panel tonight.
I used to have an amazing mullet, so I think that's it. Does anything need to be spoken? I could do this. Well, I trained mixed martial arts for about 10 years, 12 years. I taught for a few years. We did Muay Thai kickboxing, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and kind of a mix of things in the in-betweens. So, yeah, a lot of fun doing that back in the day.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, StreamYard had a comment. That was nice.
Yeah. Let's look at Daniel. Daniel, why are you qualified to comment on this movie this evening?
I'm not. I just happened to be lucky enough to be on last week, and you asked me to be on. No, I'm just kidding. I also train martial arts. I've done about 3.5 years of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've done some boxing in the past and stuff, but I will say with no shame at all that this is my favorite Jean-Claude Van Damme movie.
Well, I'm going to start with you then, Daniel. Tell us why it's your favorite Van Damme movie.
Oh, man, I don't even know where to start with that. So, like,
start somewhere.
I feel like it's just, you're gonna laugh because it's ridiculous. I feel like it's one of the least tropiest of this style of movie, right? It doesn't have the stare down the camera one-liners that some of the other action movies have. You know, I like Bloodsport, Quest, Kickboxer, and all those, but I don't know. There's something a little higher quality about this movie. It was a little more cinematic with John Woo, Sam Raimi doing the producing on it and stuff. I mean, John Woo did such a good job on it that Sam Raimi was brought in to advise and clean it up, and he's like, "There's nothing to clean up. It's perfect." And I know I'll get crucified for saying it, but It's perfect. Right down to Wilford Brimley's horrible Cajun accent. It's still perfect.
The thing about the movie that makes it so refreshing, I think. Ahoy, Captain Comics. Ahoy, mates and maids. We got Captain Comics in the chat. Say hello, Captain. Captain lives in a pineapple under the sea. The thing that I like about this movie is it's got the John Woo style that so many people were in love with that American audiences hadn't really seen. And in their action movies, that is. Slow motion, which is in, like I said, any Zack Snyder film, you'll see half the movies in slow motion. Slow motion was utilized to a degree in this movie that folks had only seen in Hong Kong action movies. And the style, you know, again, I'm not a karate guy or a jiu-jitsu or martial arts, but it seems to me that the style of Van Damme's fighting lent itself good to John Woo's slow motion. Also, the thing that was great about the movie, and we can all chime in together. The great thing about the movie is that the movie also relies on the characters of the villains. Lance Henriksen and Pick Van Cleef. Their characters had more screen time than Van Damme and Yancey. And I think from watching the movie countless times, their characters could have had their own movie. And they reminded me, it was one of those times where they acted like it was like in Batman movies, how the villains are sometimes the main characters. And something a little more than, we saw some dynamic villains like in Die Hard and stuff like that, but they didn't have the charisma and the screen time. I mean, did everyone catch in the warehouse fight, Lance Henriksen, which is a well-known fact, that scene where his jacket catches on fire, that's a fucking mistake. And they kept shooting, and he kept the jacket on while it was burning. That is badass. Also, the guy that wrote the screenplay, the idea that he wrote that Lance Henriksen, which I think his character's name was Fushan or something like that. His character, did you notice the pistol he had only fired one shot?
Yep.
So that's how badass he was, that he could only, he only needed one bullet. And then Pick. Okay, I want to see a movie just about that dude before this movie. I mean,
isn't it called The Mummy?
Yeah. But I mean, it's a well-known fact that, the movie was based, the screenplay was based on the movie and the novel and the story called The Most Dangerous Game, where rich people who are tired of hunting animals want to hunt the most dangerous game, which is man. However, I also think the movie, despite Van Damme's, delivery, the movie was really deep. It showed a lot of stuff. I remember at the end when they were in the warehouse and he said, they asked him why you're so tough for hunting us or whatever. And Van Damme said, poor people get bored too. There was a lot of socio-economic, there was a little wokeness going on there, even back in 93 when they showed the poor children in the street and they showed the veterans in the street and all that. However, with all that, I was having a conversation with Mr. Rankin the other day about the movie, And he brought up a good point. And Jeff, I gotta ask you to tell the audience the odd thing that you thought about these set choices when they were in New Orleans. What struck you as funny when the hunting was going on? Please tell us.
Well, whenever I go human targeting, especially in very large cities, I plan on having a large arsenal of weapons, including very loud guns and rifles. And I don't ever expect a cop to ever show up or be on any corner at all. So, and what I always like to do is I also like to have my peers with me, on a couple awesome, very high-end motorcycles, that are just pulling wheelies, just blaring down the roads, right? Yeah. And then I kill my guy. Yeah. That way that was the only odd thing that, that kind of story, but you kind of loved it, right? Because that kind of gave the villain side of it. You really got to see how the villains really got to come out and like woe me guy, just trying to run and get away. And what would you do, if you're hunting somebody? I don't know. You shoot them in the leg, and then do you have the heart to kill them like a deer? That was kind of a cool little part though when they were hunting through the scene. But I know that wasn't answering your question. The answer to the question was no officers, no cops or anybody around.
Forget no officers. How about anybody that's ever been to New Orleans?
Oh, no drinking.
I don't care whether it's 1983, 93, 2003, 2023, in the middle of a pandemic. Where were all the fucking people?
They heard the gunshots, man. They ran away.
And and by the way, the movie was shot in New Orleans. That was New Orleans. The whole movie was shot on location, which again, the movie actually wasn't set in New Orleans, even in the screenplay, but John Woo and the producers decided to put it in New Orleans so that Van Damme's accent could make sense, which was smart. But it was originally supposed to be in another city. And the thing is, though, I'm sorry, isn't New Orleans a little more populated than that? Like,
it's kind of interesting. You guys ever been to New Orleans? And it's New Orleans, isn't it? The kind of like the thing.
New Orleans, that's fine.
New Orleans, right? Have you guys ever been there before?
Yeah.
Any of you? You have? That's a very interesting place. So it's kind of like there is this hour where there's just people all over the road, right? And then there really is a witching hour.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Yeah, it's like right on oh my gosh, it starts with the B, the main street. Bourbon Street. Right, we were right off Bourbon Street, and literally right when the witching hour would hit, I would say probably like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, something like that. There's nobody out on the road. It is absolutely dead quiet.
Wow.
And I never really understood it, but they said that after, with our tour guide, so it's like, after a certain hour, you don't want to be on the streets, because there's
because you're going to get hunted.
Yeah,
exactly. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of issues that go on there where they will, attack you and take what they can, because there's a lot of poor people there.
I got you.
To your earlier point, Jeff, this should just speak to how amazing John Woo is. Because if you remember, there's that little throwaway scene where Natasha's walking into the police station and all the police officers are out front on strike. So maybe that's why you can run down the main street with the machine gun and nobody cares.
Right.
Good point. Good point.
Right.
Look at that. Yeah. That was a deep dive. By the way, speaking of John Woo in the movie's actually 45 minutes longer. 45 minutes of the movie was cut out. It was over 2 hours and 15 minutes, and I got cut to an hour and a half, 1 hour 37 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
There was a whole, I don't know if you noticed, but the one thing that bothered me about the movie was that we had a female and we had Van Damme with his luscious locks. And I'm going to get back to the only scene where there was actual sexual tension. But in the actual real cut of the movie, they had a romance and they stayed in some like rundown house and did the deed and everything.
See, that threw me off.
What?
That threw me off because all of a sudden she comes over and she kisses him, and I was like, where did that come from?
Yeah, well, that's the thing, is that there was nothing. Well, the most romantic scene in the movie was when he grabbed the snake and punched it in the head.
One of the dumbest things.
By the way, I like after he tapped it on the head and then he punched it, and when its head went down, its lights darkened, his eyes darkened too. And how about pulling the rattle out?
The rattle. I mean, seriously.
Oh my God. And then the best was when it jumped on the guy, spoiler, and then picked it up and was holding it. I could have swore right in front of his face, but Lance Henriksen, blew its head off then. That poor snake was very much abused.
Yes.
PETA should be calling them. And speaking of PETA, too, all those scenes of Van Damme on the horse, with the horse getting knocked over after getting artillery blasted by the helicopter.
Yep.
That was a real fall. Those weren't CGI horses.
Oh, wow.
And speaking of non-CGI, I rewatched it so many times. The motorcycle scene with him standing on top of the motorcycle and then doing that slow motion flip over the motorcycle and then turning around and shooting the truck and blowing it up. That was some serious shit, by the way. Also, I'm impressed by when you watch it, there are the scenes where they're riding through explosions where you could see the stuntmen, but I want to know how much they paid Yancey Butler to get on the back of a motorcycle with Van Damme for all those shots that were real, because they were not in a blue screen. They were on a bike and turning and going real fast. And also, I got to give it up to Woo with Wilford Brimley on a horse, and also shooting arrows for real. Here's a little known fact. The guy who plays Hawkeye in all the Avengers movies, he was interviewed and he said, I've never shot an arrow before. Like, he brings back the bow, but all those arrows are CGI. So, the idea that they got Wilford Brimley in a warehouse shooting arrows through people, it's just damn good. And there's
something about that too.
Hit me there, Daryl.
Okay. One of the things that got me, that I'm big on cheese, like the cheese factor in movies. And when I see somebody get shot like 25 times and then the Van Damme kick is what takes them out. And then you got the one guy that gets the arrow through the throat, and that was it.
Yeah, well,
that cracked me up, and I loved it. I love that. The cheese on that was great.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, this movie was just so unique for all of that, though.
Mm-hmm.
You had like some cheese factor there.
Yep.
But it made you really look at this action movie and go, man, this is the way action movies were supposed to be, right? Not like you were talking about the CGI. It's not like that. Like, these are like real actors, real stunt people doing real moves and getting hurt. I mean, you watch a John Woo movie, if there's like not maybe 5 or 15 people that have not been injured, it's not a John Woo movie. This movie, on every scene, how close he gets that filmography on when he zooms in, like on the arrows spinning, it really gets your heart pumping and going, oh my gosh, what is going to happen next?
And the most impressive thing, looking at this picture that I'm sharing, do you notice how his shirt was tucked in the whole movie?
Yes.
He has a really good waistline.
Yeah. Now, also, the gunplay in the movie was phenomenal. The way he was doing all the roundhouse kicks and shooting at the same time.
Yeah.
Not only that, how was he able to get his leg that high in those mom jeans?
Because he's because he's Van Damme, motherfucker.
That's right. He does the splits.
Now,
If
Yancey
I'm not
Butler.
mistaken, that scene though, where he was kicking, that's
Now-
where he kicked the guy on the motorcycle in the helmet.
Yep.
That's
Now,
a strong
Yancey-
foot.
The guys go like 30 miles an hour. Oh, wham!
Now Yancey Butler in this shot,
How you doing, Yancey?
she just came from a vampire movie, as you could see. And I don't even think she was hit on that side of the face, but that's okay. The one thing that Yancey Butler does well in every movie, when she opens her eyes really wide, that's worth the shot there. But again, Yancey Butler had probably another 20 minutes in this film that just never made it, was lost on the cutting room floor. But also, 1993, what we have to talk about, everybody in this movie except Pick, everyone had really good hair. As you could see in this next shot. And as you could see, every expression, she looks like she's either scared or she's looking at something really big. Now, here's John Woo. And I don't know what he's doing with Lance Henriksen here, but Lance Henriksen was the bomb in this film.
Lance,
great
for me,
villain.
he's one of those 90s super villains that you just love to hate.
Look at that
Like
shit.
him with Rutger Hauer.
Yeah. Now look at that shit. I mean, that's them planning for that scene on the bridge. Then we have Snake Punch.
Just to go back, that bridge scene was incredible. I mean, aside from the 60-mile-an-hour tuck and roll, and he just walks away. Once he crashes the bike into the van, it blows up, and then it gets shot at again and blows up again, and then as they're riding off, it blows up one more time.
And editing wise, didn't it look like it was him the whole time?
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Yeah.
And the best part is the mousse and hair product never came out of the top of his head.
Or caught on fire with all those explosions.
That's right.
It's true.
Here's the Snake Punch.
Did we ever catch where he was living?
I think he was living in that diner, Jeff.
Yeah, because I don't think we ever caught it. Never had change. I mean, he had change for coffee or whatever. But yeah, he owed $217, I think it was, in order to get on the boat.
So
Yeah, did he ever get that money? That's my question.
Van Damme actually suggested John Woo to be the director, and he was a huge fan. And of course, Bloodsport and all those movies that he had done, several of them were shot in Hong Kong. So he was a big fan, especially of Hard Boiled. He asked for Woo and then was a pain in the ass. He actually didn't like some of the editing. So he actually had the power to get to the editing booth and lock the door and change some things. And he also had a real problem with all the airtime that Henriksen was having. But that's neither here nor there, because both John Woo and Van Damme cite that they really love this film. So, and again,
Well, I don't know if you ever read it, but John Woo, his first pick for the leading role was not Van Damme.
yeah, it was Kurt Russell.
Kurt Russell.
And
That
I
would have
think
been a wildly different movie.
I think the lead acting would have been better, but stunt wise, it would have been boring.
Yeah.
I mean, because what does Kurt Russell really can do other than drop one-liners?
Snake biscuit. That's it.
And I mean, look at that. That kind of sums it up. I mean, it's what that is, sometimes you have style that's so stylish that it elevates a normal screenplay into something cool. Because again, when I saw it on the big screen, even the duster, his jacket reminded me of a Western. It had that Western feel. It had that old Man with No Name feel. Oh, there's a damsel in distress in a bar. And also, he's a reluctant hero. Like that, there's that trope, that Western, whether it's Clint Eastwood or The Mandalorian. It's a guy who's really only after his self-interest, or a Han Solo, a character who's only interested in his own stuff. And if they had let him on that boat to do that job, if he didn't owe that $247, he wouldn't have turned around to help her. And then we would have never had a story. So there's something to be said about the screenplay. I really like the gentleman who wrote it. I had his name written down, but I don't know what the fuck I did with the piece of paper. Also, by the way, the fact that I'm saying fuck so many times, here's a disclaimer. This video is not made for children. In fact, neither was Hard Target. Like that segue, boys. They submitted Hard Target 4 times because they wanted to give it an NC-17 for violence. And they submitted it 4 times before the ratings board came back with an R. And critically, the year it came out in 93, folks were saying it was one of the most violent films released that year. To be honest with you, it was ultra violent, but what I have to say is, other than the cut over his eye and the little thing and chopping the ear off, there wasn't much blood. There could have been a lot more gore. There could have been a lot more blood, some headshots, but it was mostly gut shots, and it was mostly exploding rounds of ammunition. So, it was ultra violent, but it really wasn't gross. And I think if there was some splatter, which I think John Woo's, a lot of his movies, his Hong Kong movies, did have some blood splatter. I think if you would have added the blood, they would have had a problem, releasing it or getting that R rating. But, it is what it is.
Yeah, I thought the violence was tasty, though.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, like, whenever you see Van Damme, you expect him to always take maybe one hit. But I got to say, that was probably one of the best scenes that I've seen him in, where he got his ass beat.
Yeah.
He got down and he took that kick right to the face. Yeah, but that whole scene with those 2 guys attacking him in that warehouse area, I thought was a really, really good job on John Woo and how he directed and had that scenery on every one of those hits taking place. Looked like Van Damme was going to get out of it with that nut shot, right?
Yeah. Can one of you actual trained fighters tell me what kind of style does Van Damme prefer, or does he employ in his movies?
I think it's more like a kickboxing, Muay Thai style.
He was a trained fighter for Muay Thai. He actually had some Muay Thai fights, but I think it's a Muay Thai with movie acting. So it's not. Yeah, I think that's what it is.
Yeah, he was a big competitor in the actual circuit for competing, and his style that he was training under was I think it was ITF Taekwondo and Tang Sudo, which is all about those high kicks, right, and trying to bend you and all that stuff. But like what they're saying, he did go and train Muay Thai and kickboxing in addition with the Hollywood tricks, but he had a gift from being in ballet before all of this even started to already have that flexibility. So it's just like the natural gift that he had. So as far what is it martial art wise, you would say? I'd say it's a combination of just natural gift from the ballet all the way into the kickboxing style, with also some of the additional standard karate stuff he done.
Also looking at the direction, those slow motion kicks where you see his boot hitting face. How are they doing that? Is he making contact in those shots?
Some of those shots, and not speak, please feel free, guys. But when I went to do this action camp up in New York, where I was actually training with some of these folks, right? Like the guy, it's another cheese movie, No Retreat, No Surrender. If you guys remember that back in the day. Yes, and so I was actually training with that lead guy there in this action camp, and they actually do take the hit. You're not taking the hit full on, but there's also like some cinematography where it's all done with angles.
Right
now, those kicks that he's doing, like the wheel kick, and like that one where you saw that one bad guy flying through the window in the beginning, that was more of like a hook kick.
Sure.
So it's like you're kind of like coming almost like a wheel, and then it hooks around. So that back of the shoe is kind of like hitting him in the back of the head, kind of giving that kind of.
So they're rolling with the punches and the kicks. So.
Yeah, you got to flow with the motion. If you don't flow, you get hurt, and that's where you need a good stuntman.
Yep.
Gotcha. And also with all the gunplay, other than that scene in the beginning, retrieving her purse, I think almost the majority of the fights were all kicks. Especially in the warehouse when he had the 45s. And you know what the thing is that I love most about this film? You guys ever watch these films? Like, Daniel, everybody, you guys watch these films and they're always knocking the bad guys out, but they're out of ammunition. And I'm always yelling at the screen like I'm watching a football game, yelling at the guy running downfield. I'm always yelling at the screen, even in some John Wick movies. I'm always like, pick up that fucking gun. Like you just broke a guy's neck who has an AK-47, yet this guy's got a Glock and he's only got 2 bullets left. And they never pick up the gun. In the warehouse scene, he picked up every goddamn gun that was dropped. There was even close-ups, which I thought was a cool effect. There were close-ups of the clips going in his pocket and going in the gun. And I gotta say that was John Woo. John Woo, from watching the Chow Yun Fat, and I hope I pronounced that right, those movies, he always had attention to the hardware. Like always attention to the bullets and the ammunition and the different guns and all that. And he always and even those pictures of him, like him emptying all the rounds of the shotgun, that was like so unnecessary in the script, but it just looked fucking cool. And that's why I brought this movie to everybody's attention, because mullet be damned, this is a fucking cool movie. And again, that's what made me run. I saw it the night it opened in 1993, and I've never seen any other Van Damme movie like that. Because they sold me on slow motion, mullet waving in the wind. And I had a mullet when I went and saw it, by the way. I had pretty much the same hairdo. And I used to like wearing trench coats just because, I don't know, Bon Jovi wore them. But the point is, for the time that it came out, it looked cool and it was cool. And again, it's so important. I think John Woo's involvement elevated that movie from something that could have been a really cheesy karate movie into something that was pretty epic. And also the slow motion, because I'm not, don't discredit me on this, but I believe like when you watch Steven Seagal movies, a lot of times they speed up the shots. So it looks like he's faster than he is. Like, it's like the Flash hitting somebody. But in this movie, because he's got such, Jeff brought it to the forefront. Jeff mentioned something that I had forgotten about. Van Damme had training in ballet and dance. So the truth of the matter is, if you have training in ballet, you're more graceful on the screen to begin with. So those kicks, everything looks better, everything flows better. And I just think you have a grade A movie.
I'm glad Jeff brought that up, because what one of his Van Damme's first ever acting roles was.
Yes, he was the star of the Nutcracker.
He was actually a background dancer in the movie Break-In.
Yep.
No.
They're on the beach and he's in this little onesie unitard. Yes, Daryl, exactly.
Yep. They get off the bus and there's a cardboard down there.
Yeah.
So glad Jeff brought up his dancing background. He literally danced in the background.
Yep. One thing I want to kind of piggyback when you were talking about the attention to detail about the weaponry. The first time I really noticed that in this movie is when the policewoman, they had that shootout scene and she goes down and you see Jean-Claude get her gun and her clip right there. And I was like, that is something you just don't see.
Right.
And it really just, I was like, wow, that's awesome detail.
He made a point of showing them loading every fucking weapon that anybody had. They were constantly loading, pulling bullets out, pulling clips out. He's really into that. And a John Woo trademark is the old throw me the gun trick. When Yancey Butler threw him the gun. And also what's great too is I think Chow Yun-fat did it in one of Woo's Hong Kong films where you turn the Glock or the 45 upside down and you get that click. That was in another movie of his. So he was taking some traditional things that he did in Hong Kong in that new wave of Hong Kong action directors. And he employed them in this film to an extent that you didn't see that a lot. I mean, you didn't see that in Die Hard. You didn't see slow motion. You didn't see guns flying through the air. Now, and by the way, I want to talk about the effect that it's had on movies now. We see those kind of shots all the time. Even in superhero movies, Harlequin throws a gun, someone else catches it. They throw a grenade, someone else catches it. Also, that brings me to a point too. Have you ever seen so many grenades being shown in a movie before? I mean, there were grenades and of course the kill shot, the grenade down the pants. There were. I mean, have you ever seen so many grenades being thrown unless it's in a war movie? Every single hunter had grenades on him. And when he was in the warehouse, I mean, Van Damme was holding on to that grenade the whole fight pretty much. So, yeah, it was telegraphed. But I remember when I saw the movie, I actually thought he was going to shove it in his mouth or something, because he just it's like we saw him hold the grenade because, John Woo shows the close-up of the grenade. And by the way, when he pulls the grenade out of his pants and he unscrews it, and then he sighs a relief, and then you see the little spark and he goes, whoops. Or I think he said whoa or whoops or whatever.
Yeah, there was whoops.
That was fucking amazing.
How good was Lance Henriksen in that last scene? Just those two little reactions, like you said, was awesome.
And how about the way Lance Henriksen was yelling at all those hunters? It was
come on, let's go.
It was hysterical. And by the way, he was collecting money from them to go after Van Damme. He wasn't paying them. So he was an abusive motherfucker the whole movie. And also hell of a piano player too, no?
Yeah, they cut the sex scene, but they leave the extended piano scene in.
There was no lovemaking scene, but they cut out that. So,
You know what I think though? I was thinking about that piano scene a little bit today, to be honest. I was like, what was with that? I think it was almost like because he was such this like evil, like this villain, right? But he just wasn't just an evil kind of like stupid villain. He was super overly intelligent villain, right? And him doing the piano was like it just reminded me of like an over intelligence type of person where they're like they're smarter than the average bear, that they think they can get away with anything, and basically he is.
Yeah,
and brings that around when he talks about like we need to basically get out of this little crap hole here, go to Europe where we can do this month upon end killing people. It was like he has genius mind, but piano always seems to go with that.
I like that line he had where he said to the guy that was hunting the soldier in the cemetery, he's like, "This isn't Beirut." Well, you could fool me there, Lance, but also I saw a behind the scenes video documentary about the film in preparation for tonight, and they actually talked about in that piano scene. That piano scene was actually longer in the original version, and intermixed while he was playing the piano. Apparently, they had footage of him playing, and then they had footage of animals being hunted in the wild, in the safari, and apparently, the imagery that they had in the movie of these animals being hunted was very bloody and violent. Like elk with their heads being shot off and stuff. And that was the whole idea, was they were juxtaposing the beauty of this guy playing the piano and being a hunter. And again, that's a trope too. We always see those Bond villains playing piano or violin or whatever before they nuke the city, or, pull James over a pool of alligators or something. But Lance Henriksen, I really do. I would have loved to see a movie with just his character and with Pick as a whole other film, like maybe like a prequel to that film, because his character was amazing. And as I said, as an actor, to catch on fire in the warehouse, that was a freaking accident. His jacket catching on fire. And they talked about it in this thing I saw, like he kept it on for an extra minute and a half because the cameras didn't stop. And he played it off. And you know how he was screaming? He was like, ah, and threw it off. That was all improvised. And when I saw that in the film, I remember watching it saying, that's a weird choice. Why is it taking him so long to take the jacket off? Apparently, first off, he didn't know it was on fire. Okay. And so that's right off the bat. And then second, to keep it on an extra minute and then make a scene out of it where he grabs it with his hand and throws it off. That was pretty dangerous. I saw a commentary by Yancey Butler about this, about the movie too, the motorcycle scenes. She actually says that Van Damme, Jean-Claude Van Damme, saved her life because they actually, they fucking had an accident on that motorcycle. Those weren't stunt people. It was her on the back of the bike filming that bridge shit. And there was an accident and she could have got killed. Whatever it was, his reflexes or his bike handling or whatever, he saved the day because his mullet was so cool.
Picture to safety.
Is that
little scene on the bridge when he pops the wheelie and she just jumps off, and I was like, well, that's kind of cool.
How about when she was riding the bike and he stood up with the gun, with the shotgun, around. And I'm like, and by the way, and then he just sat right back down, like smooth as silk. And again, on camera, that scene, of course, must have been on a wheel. They must have had a trailer for that scene. But the truth of the matter is, that was still cool as shit.
Yeah.
And it was seamless. There was no stunt people. It was her and him. And then he stands up, shoots, and then he sits back down, and you still see her face, which, again, is a testament to, as I get a phone call, is a testament to Woo. I love live streaming.
That was you
anyway,
calling about that clip earlier?
No, that was them calling. No, that was them calling, telling me my warranty was about to expire.
I was talking to them calling saying you're in violation of copyright. You need to shut it down.
No, if that was the case, we would be staring at a blank screen right now.
Well, speaking of doing their own stunts, it looks like it is. I have to imagine the jump from the bridge onto the train car. If that was actual stunt, even if it was stunt people,
those were people.
Cool as hell.
Those were people.
Yeah.
Those were people too.
Those were people. They weren't the stars, but those were stunt people. And that, you're right, that was crazy.
Yeah,
they do some crazy
shit. You know,
you got to make sure you hit the right car, and there's nothing underneath that tarp. You jump on a train car full of coal, and you're gonna know it.
Well, I imagine it's the movie Train,
right.
And every roof of every train car has that tarp on it with cushion underneath. But still, that looked like a dangerous stunt.
Yeah.
And but guys, that's part of the reason why I did this 90s classic video tonight. They don't make movies like that unless Tom Cruise is in them, where people are really jumping off shit.
Yeah, they his ribs and keeps on going.
Yeah, everything's CGI now. Everything's Fast and Furious models and animation. But the truth of the matter is that movie was all flesh and bone, practical stunts.
When you talk about the attention to detail, like going from the train scene where the mercenary group catches back up to them and picks examining the ground to see where their footprints are and where they go, like, who does that?
Well,
the whole premise is hunting, and you put a very vital part of hunting in the movie of looking for tracks and stuff.
And I liked how when they were running to his uncle's cabin, his farmhouse, Uncle Duvet's cabin.
The right thing to do, and the right way to do it.
By the way, his French accent was terrible.
It was awesome.
It was like, that was.
Here's a fun bit of trivia. How old do you guys think Wilford Brimley was in that movie?
I bet you he was only like 60.
Anybody? Yeah.
I mean, I would think minimum 65 to 70. So I would say 68 just because.
Go at I'm gonna go in the middle then. 65.
58.
Yeah.
58.
I was gonna say there are some actors who've looked old since they were 20. You know what I mean?
So the reason this stands out to me is I just learned something this week. I was listening to another podcast, and apparently there's this thing online. It's called the Wilford Brimley Cocoon Line. And what it is it marks the age that Wilford Brimley was when Cocoon was released.
He was 20.
He was 50 years old, 9 months and 6 days.
Wow.
Oh.
And he played a grandfather in that movie. So someone has made a website where you can go on and calculate when you're going to cross the Wilford Brimley Cocoon Line. And it is hilarious.
Well,
hey, next year for me, I'll be over 50. So there you go.
I'm there right now. So
I ain't turning around to show the back of my head. Well, it's creeping right here.
Yeah. But what you're really though, he looked old from day one. So did Ed Asner, who, by the way, is still alive and acting. I mean, Wilford Brimley passed away a few months ago, I believe. He just recently.
I think it was 2020.
But Wilford Brimley always looked like a granddad, just like Ed Asner when he was on the Mary Tyler Moore show or whatever in 1966. He looked old then. So, Captain Stubing from the Lobo.
I was literally going to say he just passed away.
Gavin McLeod, I think he just passed away yesterday.
Yeah.
He kind of looked old when he was on the Love Boat, and that was like 40 years ago. By the way, that show was on TV 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So and by the way, what is this? This movie we're reviewing is what 28 years ago. So
it is.
Shit's old, but the truth of the matter is that Wilford Brimley his accent was atrocious, but it was funny. And I just can't believe he was fighting and doing archery and killing people. But the thing is too, that's, I think he was on Quaker Oats commercials at the time. So to see him in an action film was really weird. Yancey Butler has stated that although she thinks he was a wonderful man, he was actually hitting on her very inappropriately through the course of that whole film.
To quote one of his commercials, maybe he had diabetes.
Yeah, he just had low blood sugar. That's
what diabetes. He needed some sugar.
Yeah. I like in
the
the Mardi Gras warehouse scene where Yancey Butler gets done smoking like 2 or 3 bad guys with the gun, and then he gets mad at her and takes it away from her. It's like, no, she's your best chance of survival.
She shot that one dude in the crotch like 20 times.
Yeah, I don't know what that was about. Why he took the gun.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to kill everybody, not you.
That was a patriarchal comment.
Well, if he let her keep the gun, then maybe Henriksen wouldn't have stabbed him in the chest with the arrow.
Yeah, but he didn't really. He stabbed him in his flask. So
yeah.
I think there was a lot about like letting things get shot or hit, and you just let them like be in torture. I think one of it was at one of the scenes we haven't brought it up yet, but if you guys remember, look here, you fat. Well, they go in that room. Who was doing all the flyers, right? And let me just take a pair of scissors and cut off your ear. You don't have to go to the hospital or anything, right? But
wrap it up.
Just throw some duct tape on it. You're good to go.
And by the way, he didn't bleed that much either, did he? Really? No.
It's like, oh.
Yeah. All right. See, I thought, and then for a second, I thought Lance had his ear, and then he reached over into the fish tank, but I don't think he did.
No.
So I thought, he's gonna put
that would have been good though. That would have been good though. And then all the ear jokes after it. Can you not hear well, or can I lend you an ear or whatever? One cheesy line after another. That guy though, but that guy with the flyers for the sex line, who were they giving those flyers to? We didn't see any other people in the movie.
Just the veterans.
In fact, there were more people online to pass those flyers out than we saw in the whole film.
Yeah, where were all the people to give them to?
And they didn't have cell phones, so why are you handing them out? I don't know what's going on.
Having been to New Orleans, there's plenty of those flyers that get around.
That's true.
Randall Poe was that guy's character name.
Yes.
The character names in this movie were awesome.
Yes, and Van Cleef, of course, was named after Lee Van Cleef, the actor who was a Western star and played the villain in almost every movie he was in. Also, Pick, going back to, Van Cleef, Pick Van Cleef, I love that thing where he wanted to shoot Van Damme from the air, and Lance Henriksen kept arguing with him that he didn't want to do that. And then when he actually asked him, like, it was like they had a little June is Pride Month thing going on. They were like, "You're not mad at me, are you, Pick?" And he's like, "No, I'm a professional." And that's the truth of the matter. Is that's why I think Pick was the better villain than Henriksen, because Henriksen was too emotional and too narcissistic. And I think Pick was, reminded me of a Black Ops kind of guy from your typical, shoot 'em up movies. He's the seasoned veteran, the seasoned hunter, all that.
For as icy as he was, though, like, he was sinister. Like, he wasn't boring at all.
Oh, no.
Like, he played it up scary enough and icy enough at the same time. Like, we were talking about that scene with Randall Poe, where he cuts his ear off. He has good dialogue in that, and still remains icy and terrifying.
And speaking of Poe, how about the scene where? Daryl, exactly. How about that scene where he smokes him in the car, Pulp Fiction style, and just blows his brains.
There's your blood splatter.
There's your blood splatter. But
speaking of blowing brains out, when I think it was the mayor or the governor's house, and then he looks through his peephole, that was terrifying. Like, I didn't look through peepholes for years after that. And they show like the back of his head, like football open and everything as he falls to the ground.
Yeah.
If that made the movie, I'd love to see what got cut out.
Yeah. And that again, that was probably why they submitted it so many times to get the R rating, because there was probably a lot of stuff. Maybe there was boobies in it too, besides what we saw on the flyer. There was probably a lot of stuff that got cut that that could have made the movie. I actually am going to sometime in the future, maybe tonight, I'm going to check out if there's a director's cut available anywhere. Because, see, I have the normal widescreen DVD. I don't have the Blu-ray or anything. But I'd love to see if there's a bootleg copy or some sort of director's cut. And God damn it, if there's not, there should be. There should be a 4-hour version. There should be a Snyder cut of this.
We can petition.
We could. There'll be 4 petitions.
There you go.
4 of us.
All the Snyder references. I can't believe it took us this long to say it. Birds are to Woo as floating orbs are to Snyder. I can't believe it took to the last scene of the movie before the birds finally came in, but it was awesome.
I think there were birds earlier.
I don't remember the Mardi Gras warehouse because they figure prominently. They even poop on Henriksen at one point.
There were
one of the guys
earlier in the movie. There were some doves. Possibly there were birds by the boat when he was applying for the job.
Okay, but
that's the thing. That's Woo's thing, though. All his Hong Kong movies have birds and particularly doves in them. Either he's a big Prince fan, or he just the whole thing is that he was juxtaposing the violence, the gun violence, with the birds that were symbols of peace. So go figure. But yeah, the doves and the birds in the movie, the pooping on the guy's helmet. There was a scene I didn't understand. There was a scene where the guys were not on their bikes anymore, and they're going into a dark warehouse, by the way, that's not very dimly lit, yet they have full face motorcycle helmets on. I'm thinking that would be hard to shoot and see your prey with those visors and helmets on, but that's just me.
That's why they were shooting like stormtroopers and couldn't hit a thing.
There you go. Yeah, there was a scene. Hey, when Pick and Boudreaux, when he said Boudreaux, when they were both next to the wall, by the way, which is only an inch thick, that wall.
Yep.
And they both have guns. When they came out to the window and they started shooting each other, were they not less than 6 feet apart? Blasting off 20 rounds and couldn't hit shit. But there's grenades being thrown around. That was funny. Speaking of stormtroopers and the A-team, that was like every A-team fight where I'm just going to shoot, my semi-automatic weapon at you at close range and totally miss every time. But
I've slightly moved my head to the side and still couldn't avoid a punch, but they can do it with bullets, and it's impressive.
Well, again, for all its faults and its suspending disbelief that we use in an action movie like this, whether it's the bridge scene or the Mardi Gras warehouse or Wilford Brimley's accent. To sum it up, I have to say it was a damn good movie. And on a scale of 1 to 10 of kick-ass 90 movies, I'll give it a 9 because it's up there. It's everything a 90s action movie should be. And the thing that set it apart, and I'm going to say something, especially my friend Jeff down there below, we've spoken a lot about 80s classic action movies. And the thing that sets the 90s, this movie, Hard Target, apart is that it actually was 93. And I think the cultural movement in 93, even despite the mullet, was to be a little edgier. And I think movies like this paved the way for movies like The Matrix in the late 90s. If it wasn't for these movies that were made in Hong Kong by directors like John Woo, you wouldn't have the firepower or the stylized action that was then kind of made famous by the Matrix movies, which the Matrix movies then led to the stuff that is being released every month now. You know, whether it's the slow motion or whether it's the explosiveness or the angles or, you know, those familiar shots of there's a guy at the bottom of the stairs and there's guys at the top of the stairs and I'm shooting at them that way. Those angles, by the way, if you look at movies from the 80s and 70s, they weren't like that. The angles that were being utilized were pretty much side to side profile shots.
Yeah.
You know, the between the legs shot, all that shot, all those things kind of gave way in those early 90s movies that are still being used today. And Daniel specifically, even in comic books, the Image comics, that those extreme angles and those extreme you know, panels that we saw in the Image books and independent comics, those came out of those guys, whether it be Jim Lee or Rob Liefeld or Todd McFarlane or Eric Larson. That's from their love of Hollywood motion pictures. And and by the way, they're also their love of watching a lot of anime, getting that Eastern influence on Hollywood. So,
just so you were talking about a like a director's cut kind of footage. So I just did a quick look. Right, they said that there actually was a 128-minute footage cut that was put out there, but it was like on a really bad dub tape, and it doesn't have any of the music scene or any of the sound effects, but it says it does have all shot footage from the original 116-minute and 99-minute long version that we're used to.
If all three of the people watching the chat right now, if one of you has access to that, please DM me, and I will go pick it up at a flea market near you. There's a guy in Times Square right now on the side of the road that has that bootleg version.
I like to get a copy of that. I like to see what else is in there.
Well, if anyone can find it, Jeff, it would be you.
That is true.
That is true.
That is true.
That is true. So, to be in the flavor of this film, I'm going to, in a few minutes, bid everyone adieu. And thank you very much for joining me tonight. This was fun. Let's do this again. I'd like to do another classic 90s flick, kick-ass flick review, and get everyone's hot take on something else. Now, I am going to do a round robin and start with Daryl, and I'd like your closing thoughts on the movie Hard Target, Van Damme's mullet, and and your closing thoughts on this broadcast.
I really is the first time I'd seen the movie in probably 15 years, and I forgot how amazing that hair was. It was magnificent. The kicks, which I always love. I will say there was more story to it than I remembered, and it did have depth to it. So it actually surprised me a little bit that how it held up over the 30 years. So all in all, I'm always one of those people. I'm not going to overgrade something. I'm thinking about 7.5 for me, because when you get up to the 9s, I'm like, you got to be something extremely special. So for me, 7.5 is very high. So that's kind of where I'm going with it. But that's what I got. And guys, it's a pleasure meeting you guys too. This is always fun hanging out with Anthony and meeting new people. So that's awesome.
Well, let me defend my 9 rating.
Mm-hmm.
My 9 rating was based on when it came out and the genre or the type of movie. So my rating was against, and by the way, Jurassic Park came out the same year.
Wow, I did not know
But
that.
Jurassic Park didn't have any mullets and roundhouse kicks. So, and I would have loved to see Wouldn't you have loved to see Chance Boudreaux in Jurassic Park? Imagine roundhouse
a dinosaur in the face.
Imagine roundhouse kicks to those velociraptors. Hey, Hollywood, make that happen.
Exactly.
Daniel, you have the floor.
Well, you didn't have to sell your 9 because I'm going to sell it for you. I think we summed it up perfectly when you talked about the different styles in this movie. I feel like it's going to sound incredibly douchey, like I'm some kind of like movie scholar. It is the pivot point for everything we liked about movies before it and everything we like about movies now. It starts as a Clint Eastwood or a John Wayne Western, right? Comes into town, he's a nameless guy, gets angry at everyone in town, kills everyone in town, and rides off with the girl. So much so, like you had said before, the Western style, all the city streets he shoots on, they're all dirt roads, and he even kicks that one guy into a horse hitching post. It's perfect. And then from that, you go from Western to the shoot 'em up action movies, the Schwarzeneggers, the Stallones, the Seagals. You have everything you want there with the gunfighting and the martial arts and everything like that. And then you add in all the stunts, the explosions, the special effects. I mean, you could see traces of it in modern movies now, but then you can see some of the classic simplicity of movies past. So I'm going to oversell it. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. I'll watch that movie anytime. I'm never bored. I'm going to watch the whole thing. I'm not going to fall asleep. Yeah, it is my favorite Van Damme movie.
And another quick fact: the guy that played Natasha's dad, Natasha, I think Binder. Natasha Binder's dad, the homeless vet, was actually portrayed by the guy that wrote the screenplay. And by the way, I think he put up the best fight, but that's just me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he technically won. He made it to the river.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not alive to celebrate, but
I'm now Jeff. Jeff, you have the floor. Closing comments.
All right. Well, I'm a big Van Damme fan. I love a lot of his movies, right? All the way to, like I was talking about, No Retreat, No Surrender. But on this one here, it was a big, huge difference for him as a leading role on how he has had other leading roles in the other movies. I think this really kind of like try to pull out. He wasn't known as being like the greatest of actors, right? But I thought his acting ability actually in this movie, you were in tune. You kind of like believed into the character. It kind of drew you in. It worked really well with all the other characters and the villains. You were really excited all the way through the movie. It just scene after scene. When I think of an action movie, I think of like where stunt people get hurt, unfortunately, because it's like, it has to look so, you want it to look realistic. You want to have kind of like a real human element to it. And this movie kind of had that human element. If you had to think of somebody running down, the streets of New Orleans being hunted, what would it be like? And John Woo really pulled you into those action moments to where he took those fine details, took that Hong Kong type of action filmography and brought in, the Western world and put everything together and just made this great concoction for a really good action movie. It's not necessarily a martial art movie. It had some, kicks and flares there, but as an overall movie, super well done. And the gentleman that was on that said Clint Eastwood, that was a perfect reference, right? It definitely had those kind of elements from that, kind of cowboy type of like woo woo kind of going out there, and the action start taking over everything. So if I have to give it a score with mullets, dripping grease and everything, I don't know how many times they had to wipe off his jacket, probably from all the hair products. But honestly, I would put it up there with the 9 as well for the 93 genre, because it wasn't a CGI movie. Jurassic Park, yeah, that was good, like family movie. But when you talk about an action movie, outside of like Missing in Action and, Rambo 3 at the time, this movie just kicked ass. And so I give it a high 9.
All right. Well, you have the scores. Daryl apparently didn't like the movie. No.
My thing is, I would say this: if I don't like a movie, it's getting like a 2 or a 3.
No,
I'm not one of those people that's like, it wasn't very good. I'll give it a 5.
On Rotten Tomatoes, we all gave the movie high marks. And the truth of the matter is, the film, what's nice is Daryl brought up very succinctly, and I concur. When I saw the movie on opening night in St. Augustine in 1993, and by the way, here's how old I am. If anyone's from Florida and St. Augustine, I saw it in the movie theater inside the St. Augustine Mall, which there ain't nothing in the St. Augustine Mall now. In fact, I think it's the St. Augustine Mall, I believe. Thank you, Captain Comics. Captain Comics says, great show, R. The St. Augustine Mall looks like the opening scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's full of tarantulas and spider webs and rolling balls that will kill you. Now, again, for 1993, I think we all concur it was a kick-ass movie, hard target, starring Lance Henriksen, because let's face it, he had more screen time than anybody. The guy from The Mummy, who I don't remember his name, Yancey Butler. Yancey Butler, who, by the way, should have had more screen time. And hey, if you want to check out Yancey Butler, go order the Witchblade TV series from the early 2000s on eBay. You could probably get this set for, I don't know, $15. It's a full set. It's fantastic. Get it. She also starred in Kick-Ass 1 and Kick-Ass 2. A lot of people don't know that. But she should have had more screen time, her and her crazy eyes. And, of course, Jean-Claude Van Damme and the other star of the movie, Wilford Brimley's Cajun accent.
That takes it down a point.
You know, whatever vocal coaching that they paid for, they did not get their money's worth. Also, by the way, I'd like to say that the movie was produced by Sam Raimi from The Evil Dead, Army of Darkness, all 3 Spider-Man movies, and also, by the way, the upcoming director for Doctor Strange and the Multitude of Madness or Multiverse of Madness. Sam Raimi, also, by the way, Darkman. Sam Raimi, an amazing director. And by the way, if no one's seen Crawl by Sam Raimi, excellent movie about basements in Florida full of alligators. Other than the basements in Florida, incredible horror suspense movie. I recommend it. But getting back to my point, the Universal, who put out the movie, was so afraid of John Woo directing it that they hired Sam Raimi as co-director or producer to oversee. And if John Woo screwed up, Sam Raimi was instructed to take the movie over. Sam Raimi was the biggest John Woo fan, and he pretty much told the executives of Universal, leave Woo the fuck alone and let him make the movie he wanted. And by the way, the reason I brought it up is the movie would not be as successful and well done if not for Sam Raimi, because Sam Raimi let John Woo be John Woo. And the producers, their big problem was that it was too violent. And Sam Raimi went to the producers and said, you hired this guy because of his violent Hong Kong films, but now you don't want it to be violent? So, the thing is that's one creative type sticking up for another creative type and making a successful project. The movie was successful. It was kind of critically lambasted when it came out because of its violence. But again, I think a lot of things that don't get critical acclaim are probably because they're a little bit ahead of their time. And I think if this movie had come out today, it, first of all, wouldn't have been innovative. But in hindsight, just like Daryl very suitably stated, the actual movie, upon reviewing it, like I watched it again last night and I watched it a few weeks ago when I had the brainchild of doing this video. The video, first of all, holds up besides the mullet. And the video, the movie has more story than I remember. Because in 1993, I was a lot younger now than I am now too. And when I first viewed it, I was pretty much more interested in, the mullet and the roundhouse kicks. And I really wasn't, doing a deep dive. But I think we all, as we get older, the things that were kick-ass in 1993, 1983, or 1973, or 2003 hold water. They hold the mustard, and they're still kick-ass. But upon further review, I think they're even more kick-ass than they were. So, on that note, I'm going to bid everyone adieu. Thank you, gentlemen. Daryl, Jeff, Daniel, thank you very much for joining me tonight. And please, if you like this video, whether you're watching it live or on replay, please hit that like button. Also, if you're just catching the video because you're into Van Damme and it comes across your playlist, please subscribe to my channel. I'll be talking some music, comic books, kick-ass films, and boobies and guns. Don't forget the boobies and guns. All right. That's my creed. Boobies and guns. All right. Look at that selfless promotion. I am the creator of Misty America, Venerella, and Oh My God. Jeff, you need to read those books as soon as possible so you can give me your commentary. And you can catch me and Daryl, who's holding up my posters. You can catch me and Daryl most Sunday nights at 9:00 on the Cantonese Comic Kids Extreme Nerd Table. And you can catch Daniel Driscoll drawing variant covers for various issues of Wild Mercury Comics. And if you check out on YouTube or Facebook, Metropolis Rising and the band Luna Dementia, you can catch the sizzling guitar pyrotechnics of Mr. Jeff Rankin, who plays guitar even better than he kicks people. But I got one last thing to say. The only thing that was missing from the movie was nunchucks. But hey, I'm from Florida, so I like nunchucks. Gentlemen, stick around for the after party. I'm about to end the broadcast. Don't go anywhere.